Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Sarge's Briefings. Today, we're talking about a decision that comes before you ever get your first set of truck keys. You've decided you want your Class A CDL. Now you've got another decision to make. Do you pay for CDL school yourself, or do you go through a carrier-sponsored training program that can reduce or cover that upfront cost? I've talked with plenty of new drivers over the years who made this decision based on one thing: how much money they had to spend today. But there's more to consider than the price of tuition. Carrier-sponsored training can provide a direct path into your first driving job, but there may be commitments attached to that training. Paying for school yourself can give you more freedom when you're ready to look for work, but you're taking on the cost before you know exactly where that CDL is going to take you. Neither option is automatically good or bad. The right choice depends on your financial situation, where you live, what opportunities are available to you, and what you're willing to commit to. So today we're going to put both options on the table, look at the advantages and the trade-offs, and hopefully give you enough information to ask the right questions before you make that decision. Let's get started. Before we compare the two options, let's make sure we understand what we're talking about. With carrier-sponsored training, a trucking company may provide the training itself or help arrange and pay for qualifying training through a program associated with the carrier. Depending on the program, some or all of your upfront training costs may be covered. In exchange, you may be agreeing to work for that company for a certain period of time or accepting some other financial obligation. We'll talk more about that in a minute. The other route is paying for CDL school yourself. That could mean a private truck driving school, community college, technical school, or another qualified training provider. One important thing applies regardless of which route you choose. For drivers subject to the federal entry-level driver training requirements, the required training must come from a provider listed on FMCSA's training provider registry. States can also have additional requirements. So before handing anyone money or signing an agreement, verify the training program and understand exactly what you're getting. Because the goal isn't simply to attend CDL school. The goal is to come out of that school with a realistic path to employment. Now let's start with the biggest attraction of carrier-sponsored training. The biggest advantage of carrier-sponsored CDL training is pretty obvious: money. CDL training can be a significant expense, and not everybody has the money available to pay for school up front. A carrier-sponsored program can lower that financial barrier. Depending on the program, training costs may be covered, financed, reimbursed, or handled through some combination of those options. Some programs may also provide compensation during certain portions of training, but those details vary considerably, so don't assume one carrier's program works the same way as another. There's another major advantage. You may already have a pathway toward employment. Instead of graduating from an independent school and then beginning your job search, you're entering training through a company that's bringing people into its own driver pipeline. For somebody changing careers who doesn't have thousands of dollars sitting in the bank, that can be a very practical way into trucking. And I want to make this clear: carrier-sponsored training isn't automatically a bad deal because there's a commitment attached to it. For some people, it may be the opportunity that makes becoming a professional driver possible in the first place. But before you sign up, you need to understand what you're giving in return. And that's where we get to the other side of the equation. Here's where I want you to slow down and pay attention. If a company is helping pay for your CDL training, find out exactly what you're agreeing to in return. Some programs may require you to remain employed with that carrier for a specified period. If you leave early, you may owe some or all of the training cost. The exact terms depend on the program. That's why you need to read the agreement before you sign it. How long is the commitment? What happens if you quit? What happens if the company terminates you? How much could you owe? How is repayment calculated? And when does that obligation end? Don't wait until you're unhappy 6 months later to start looking for those answers. There's also the question of freedom. If you're committed to one carrier because of your training agreement, you may not have the same ability to shop around for another driving job immediately after getting your CDL. Again, that doesn't automatically make it a bad arrangement. It makes it an arrangement you need to understand. Free training isn't necessarily free. Sometimes the price isn't paid up front. It's paid through the commitment you make afterward. Know the deal before you sign the deal. Now let's look at the other option: paying for CDL school yourself. Paying for CDL school yourself changes the equation. The biggest advantage is freedom. When you graduate, you're generally not tied to a particular carrier because that carrier paid for your training. You can apply to multiple companies and compare the opportunities available to you. Maybe one offers better home time. Maybe another has an account closer to where you live. Maybe there's a particular type of freight you want to haul. Having paid for your own training can give you more flexibility when making that first career decision. But there's a price for that freedom. You're paying the cost up front, or you're finding another way to finance it. And here's something I really want prospective drivers to understand. Paying for your own CDL can buy you freedom. It doesn't buy you a job. You can spend thousands of dollars on training, graduate, get your CDL, and still discover that the companies you want have hiring requirements you don't meet. Maybe it's your location, maybe it's your driving history, maybe it's something in your background, or maybe those companies simply aren't hiring new graduates at that time. That's why I don't recommend choosing a school first and worrying about employment later. Which brings us to probably the most important part of this entire briefing. If you're thinking about getting your CDL, here's the advice I want you to remember from this entire video. Start researching jobs before you choose your school. Look at the companies hiring new drivers where you actually live. Find out what their experience requirements are. Ask whether they hire graduates from the school you're considering. Find out whether they have training programs of their own. Then compare your options. If you're considering carrier-sponsored training, don't look only at what it costs you today. Look at the entire agreement. If you're considering paying for school yourself, don't look only at the freedom you'll have afterward. Make sure there are realistic employment opportunities waiting on the other side, and verify that the provider you're considering meets the requirements that apply to you. FMCSA provides a searchable training provider registry for drivers subject to ELDT. You aren't just choosing where to spend a few weeks learning to drive a truck. You're making the first business decision of your trucking career. Don't wait until graduation to figure out who's going to hire you. Research the job before you choose the school. Now let's head back to the desk and wrap this one up. So which one's better? Carrier-sponsored CDL training or paying for school yourself? There isn't one answer that's right for everybody. Carrier-sponsored training may reduce the amount of money you need up front and provide a more direct path into your first driving job. But you need to understand any employment or repayment obligations that come with it. Paying for school yourself may give you more freedom afterward, but you're accepting the financial risk up front. And having a CDL still doesn't guarantee that a particular company will hire you. That's why I keep coming back to the same advice. Do your homework before you enroll. Research the school, research the jobs, understand the costs, and if there's an agreement involved, read it and understand it before you sign your name. The best CDL training option isn't necessarily the cheapest one or the most expensive one. It's the one that gives you a realistic path from the classroom to your first driving job. Thanks for spending some time with me today. If this briefing helped you, hit the like button, subscribe to Truck Stop Talk with Sarge, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next Sarge's briefing. And if you've already gone through CDL training, tell us in the comments which route you took, carrier-sponsored or self-pay. Your experience might help somebody who's trying to make that decision right now. Until next time, drive safe, make good decisions, and I'll see you at the next truck stop.